A man values what he earns, not what is handed to him. And this truth sits at the core of why men fall harder for women who let them go. From the very beginning, men are wired to respond to challenge, effort, and purpose. It's not because men enjoy difficulty for the sake of suffering, but because effort activates meaning. When something requires energy, focus, and intentional action, it registers in a man's mind as valuable. The moment effort disappears, value slowly fades, not out of cruelty, but out of human nature. When a woman gives too much too soon, always available, always forgiving, always explaining, always adjusting herself to keep a man comfortable, she unintentionally removes the very process that creates emotional investment. The man didn't have to rise, didn't have to stretch, didn't have to prove anything to keep her. And when a man doesn't have to prove himself, he doesn't fully engage. He may enjoy her presence, appreciate her kindness, even care for her deeply, but the fire that creates commitment never fully ignites. Men bond through effort. The work they put in becomes the story they tell themselves about why something matters. That's why a man will protect a job he worked hard to get, value a skill he struggled to master, and cherish a victory that cost him sweat and sacrifice. The same psychology applies to relationships. When a man has to show consistency, integrity, leadership, and emotional growth to keep a woman in his life, she becomes tied to his identity. Losing her then feels like losing a part of himself. When a woman lets go instead of chasing, she reintroduces effort into the equation. Suddenly, the man is no longer being carried by her emotional labor. He is forced to sit with his choices. The comfort is gone. The reassurance is gone. The safety net is gone. And in that absence, effort becomes necessary if he wants her back. That's when emotions deepen, because now he has to decide whether she is worth the work. A woman letting go isn't manipulation, it's clarity. She isn't trying to punish him or teach him a lesson. She's simply refusing to do the work of two people. And that refusal changes the dynamic instantly. The man realizes that access to her is not automatic. It must be earned. And once something must be earned, it becomes valuable. Effort also creates accountability. When a man knows he has to show up, communicate, and lead to keep a woman, he becomes more self-aware. He notices his patterns. He reflects on his behavior. He recognizes where he was lazy, dismissive, or inconsistent. But when a woman stays no matter what, that mirror never appears. There's no urgency to grow because there's no risk of loss. Loss is one of the greatest teachers for a man. Not the dramatic kind filled with arguments and chaos, but the quiet loss that comes from a woman calmly choosing herself. That kind of loss lingers. It doesn't attack his ego. It challenges it. It makes him question his assumptions about love, availability, and value. And those questions are what lead to emotional attachment. A woman who lets go also restores balance. Relationships are meant to be mutual exchanges of effort, respect, and care. When one person overfunctions, the other underfunctions. If she's always fixing, forgiving, planning, and explaining, he unconsciously steps back. Not because he doesn't care, but because the system no longer requires his full participation. Letting go resets that imbalance. It sends a clear message. Connection requires contribution. Men fall harder when they realize that a woman's presence was not guaranteed. When she steps away, he begins to replay moments he once took for granted. The conversations he didn't listen to. The efforts he didn't return. The chances he assumed would always be there. Those memories gain weight only after effort is required again. There's also dignity in letting go that deeply impacts a man's perception. A woman who walks away calmly, without begging or bitterness, communicates strength. She shows that her value does not depend on being chosen. That strength commands respect, and respect is essential for lasting attraction. A man may desire many women, but he commits to the one he respects. Effort is also tied to pride. When a man earns a woman, as trust, affection, and partnership, he feels proud of the relationship. It becomes something he wants to protect and invest in. But when everything is freely given without standards, there's nothing to protect. No sense of achievement. No sense of ownership in the emotional sense. Letting go forces a man to decide whether he is willing to rise. And that decision is powerful. If he chooses to step up, the effort he puts in strengthens his bond. If he chooses not to, then the woman has lost nothing of value because she was already carrying the weight alone. Either way, letting go restores truth. Men don't fall harder because a woman disappears. They fall harder because effort re-enters the picture. They fall harder because they must now act with intention rather than convenience. They fall harder because value becomes clear only when access is no longer free. A woman who lets go teaches a man, without words, that love is not something you receive passively. It's something you participate in actively. And for a man, participation is where attachment grows. Effort becomes emotion. Action becomes connection. Work becomes love. When a woman lets go, she doesn't just create physical distance. She creates emotional space. And that space forces a man to finally hear himself. For many men, emotions are not loud when everything is comfortable. Feelings dawn. They announce themselves when routines are predictable and reassurance is constant. They stay buried under distraction, habit, and familiarity. But the moment a woman steps back and removes her presence, the noise of everyday comfort disappears. And what's left is awareness. That awareness is often the first time a man truly understands what he feels. Men are not always taught to process emotions in real time. Instead, they process through absence. While a woman may feel everything immediately, a man often feels after the fact. He understands the value of a connection only when it is no longer accessible. When a woman is always there, always checking in, always emotionally available, his feelings remain dormant. There's no pressure to define them. Letting go removes the cushion and forces emotional clarity. The silence that follows a woman's departure is not empty. It's filled with reflection. It's in the quiet moments that a man starts replaying interactions he once overlooked. He hears her voice in conversations he didn't take seriously. He remembers her patience, her consistency, the emotional safety she provided. Those memories carry weight only because they are no longer being created. Absence transforms ordinary moments into emotional markers. When a woman lets go, the man is confronted with his own behavior, without her presence to soften the edges of his actions. He must face the consequences of what he gave and what he withheld. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Emotional awareness doesn't come from comfort, it comes from contrast. He begins to notice how much effort she was putting in, how much emotional labor she carried, and how little he may have noticed at the time. Distance also disrupts illusion. While a woman is present, a man can convince himself that everything is fine, that there's time to improve, that he'll step up later. Letting go removes that illusion. Later no longer exists. The relationship is either acted upon now or lost. That urgency brings clarity, and clarity sharpens emotion. Men fall harder in this stage because emotions finally have room to surface. There's no distraction of daily access. No reassurance to numb the fear of loss. What remains is raw feeling. Missing someone is not just longing, it's recognition, it's the realization that something meaningful existed. Letting go creates the conditions for that realization. A woman stepping back also shifts the emotional power dynamic. When she is no longer initiating contact or seeking validation, the man must confront his own desire. He has to ask himself whether he wants her or simply enjoys being wanted. That question is uncomfortable but revealing. If he truly wants her, the absence becomes painful. If he does, the distance feels neutral. Either outcome brings truth, but only the first leads to deeper emotional attachment. Emotional awareness often arrives through regret. Not dramatic regret, but quiet recognition of missed opportunities, the moments he could have shown up better, the words he could have said, the effort he could have given. These realizations appear when a woman is still trying. They appear when trying is no longer happening. Letting go also removes emotional dependency. When a man realizes a woman is not waiting, not pausing her life, not holding space indefinitely, he understands that her love was a choice, not a need. That realization changes how he values her. Choice carries more weight than dependency. Love given freely but not endlessly is respected more deeply. Men fall harder when they are left alone with their thoughts. Not in loneliness, but in reflection. The absence of her presence creates emotional contrast between life with her and life without her. And contrast is what defines value. What once felt normal now feels rare. What once felt guaranteed now feels fragile. There is also growth that happens in the emotional gap. A man begins to notice patterns in himself. Avoidance, fear of vulnerability, resistance to commitment. These patterns often remain hidden while a woman compensates for them. Letting go exposes them, and awareness is the first step toward change. A woman who lets go does need to explain her worth. Her absence explains it. The emotional space she leaves behind speaks louder than arguments ever could. That space forces a man to feel, to reflect, and to decide. Men don't fall harder because they are abandoned. They fall harder because emotional awareness finally arrives. Feelings that were once buried become undeniable. And when emotions are recognized, rather than ignored, attachment deepens. When a woman chooses herself and walks away with self-respect, something fundamental shifts in how a man sees her. Attraction is not sustained by availability alone, it is sustained by value. And value is always linked to standards. A woman who lets go communicates without saying a word that she has limits, boundaries, and a deep understanding of her own worth. That understanding is magnetic because it signals strength, not need. Men may enjoy being needed, but they commit to what they respect. Respect is the foundation of lasting attraction for a man. Desire can be triggered by beauty, attention, or chemistry, but respect is what anchors emotion. When a woman stays in situations that diminish her, over-explains her pain, or tolerates inconsistency, respect slowly erodes not because she is unworthy, but because the man subconsciously associates her with a lack of boundaries. Letting go interrupts that pattern. It restores balance and reframes her identity in his mind. A woman who walks away calmly sends a powerful message. She is not afraid of loss if the cost of staying is self-betrayal. That message forces a man to reevaluate his assumptions. He may have believed she would always adjust, always forgive, always remain. When that belief collapses, so does his sense of control. And in that moment, attraction often intensifies, because unpredictability combined with dignity creates intrigue. Self-respect is attractive because it reflects self-sufficiency. A woman who lets go demonstrates that her happiness is not dependent on a man's validation. She is not using the relationship to fill a void. She is sharing her life, not escaping into someone else's. That independence elevates her in a man's eyes. She is no longer someone he can take for granted. She becomes someone he must rise to meet. Men are drawn to women who challenge them emotionally, not through drama, but through standards. Letting go is the ultimate standard. It says, this is what I deserve. And if it's not present, I will not negotiate my worth. That stance forces a man to confront whether he is capable of meeting her at that level. And when a man is challenged in this way, his attraction becomes purposeful. There is also clarity and self-respect. A woman who lets go removes confusion from the dynamic. She is not sending mixed signals or staying while being unhappy. She is aligned in her words and actions. That alignment is powerful because it creates emotional certainty. Men respect certainty. They may resist it at first, but they are drawn to it over time. When a woman maintains her dignity, even in separation, she leaves a lasting impression. There is no bitterness, no manipulation, no need to prove a point. Just quiet confidence. That confidence lingers in a man's mind long after the relationship pauses or ends. He compares future interactions to the way she carried herself. And often nothing measures up. Self-respect also prevents emotional erosion. A woman who stays too long in a one-sided dynamic often loses parts of herself. She becomes reactive, insecure, and emotionally exhausted. Letting go preserves her essence. And men are most attracted to women who are whole, not depleted. Wholeness is not perfection, it is integrity. A man may not immediately understand why her absence feels different from others, but over time he recognizes that she did not leave to punish him. She left to protect herself. That distinction matters. Leaving out of self-respect feels final in a way that arguments never do. And finality triggers reflection. Respect grows in the space where boundaries are enforced. When a woman enforces her boundaries by walking away, she teaches a man how to treat her, even in absence. He learns that access to her life, energy, and affection requires consistency and care. That lesson, once learned, deepens attraction rather than diminishing it. Men fall harder for women who let them go because those women embody value. Not value defined by beauty or attention, but value defined by self-knowledge. And self-knowledge is rare. It signals emotional maturity, strength, and clarity. A woman who chooses herself becomes unforgettable, not because she begged, chased, or waited, but because she knew when to stop. And in stopping, she showed a man what real worth looks like. Love does not deepen in constant pursuit, it deepens in space. When a woman is always present, always explaining, always reaching out, love has no room to breathe. It becomes familiar, predictable, and emotionally flat. Not because the connection lacks meaning, but because meaning requires contrast. Absence provides that contrast. It creates the emotional distance necessary for longing, reflection, and realization to emerge. Pursuit keeps a man focused on responding rather than feeling. When a woman is chasing, initiating every conversation, checking in, and holding the emotional thread together, the man remains reactive. He answers, replies, reassures when needed, but he is rarely led inward. His emotions stay surface level because there is no silence forcing him to look deeper. Love cannot grow in constant noise. Absence introduces silence, and silence is where emotion amplifies. When a woman steps back, her absence becomes noticeable. The routines that once included her now feel incomplete. The spaces she occupied emotionally become empty. That emptiness is not punishment, it is awareness. And awareness is the birthplace of longing. Men often realize the depth of their feelings not when love is present, but when it is missing. While together the mind adapts, the heart grows accustomed. But when absence arrives, comparison begins. Life with her versus life without her. And in that comparison, love often reveals itself. Pursuit also removes mystery. When everything is available, explained, and emotionally exposed, there is nothing left to discover. Men are drawn to mystery not because they want confusion, but because mystery invites engagement. Absence restores mystery. It leaves unanswered questions. It makes a man wonder what she's doing, how she's feeling, whether she has moved on. Those questions keep her alive in his mind. Love grows when a man imagines, not when he's constantly told. Absence fuels imagination. He begins to replay moments, reinterpret conversations, and reevaluate memories. What once felt ordinary gains emotional depth. A laugh, a habit, a small gesture suddenly feels significant. That significance was always there, but it required distance to be felt. Pursuit can unintentionally communicate fear of loss. Absence communicates confidence. A woman who lets go shows that she trusts life to continue without forcing outcomes. That confidence is deeply attractive. It signals emotional strength and self-sufficiency. Men are drawn to women who are grounded, not grasping. When a woman stops pursuing, the emotional responsibility shifts. The man must decide whether to step forward or step away. That decision is crucial. Love grows when a man chooses, not when he is pulled. Choice creates ownership. Ownership deepens attachment. Absence also removes emotional dependency. When a woman is always present, a man may rely on her for emotional regulation without realizing it. Her voice calms him. Her reassurance stabilizes him. Her attention centers him. When she leaves, that regulation disappears, and he feels the void. That void is often mistaken for loneliness, but it is actually attachment surfacing. Love grows when a man feels the emotional impact of someone not being there. It teaches him what she provided, what she meant, and how she influenced his inner world. Pursuit prevents that lesson by cushioning the loss before it ever felt. There is also dignity in absence. A woman who steps back without drama leaves a clean emotional imprint. No chaos, no bitterness, no emotional tug of war, just space. That space feels different. It feels final enough to matter, but open enough to invite reflection. That balance is powerful. Men fall harder when absence feels earned, not forced. When a woman lets go after giving genuine effort, her absence carries weight. It does feel like manipulation. It feels like consequence. And consequences are what shape emotional growth. Absence also disrupts complacency. Comfort dulls desire. Predictability softens urgency. When a woman is no longer there, urgency returns. Time suddenly feels important. Opportunities feel finite. And love often sharpens under pressure. Pursuit keeps love in the present moment. Absence stretches it across time. A man begins to think about the future differently. He imagines what could have been, what still could be, and what might never happen. Those thoughts deepen emotional attachment because they connect love to possibility. Love grows when a man misses, not when he is reminded. Reminders feel safe. Missing feels vulnerable. And vulnerability is where real emotion lives. A woman's absence also allows her essence to stand alone. Without constant interaction, a man remembers who she is, not just how she makes him feel in the moment. Her values, her energy, her presence become clearer in memory than they sometimes were in daily interaction. Pursuit often keeps love stuck in negotiation. Absence frees her from that. There are no arguments to distract, no explanations to defend, no emotions to manage. Just truth. Either he feels the loss deeply or he does G. Either way, clarity replaces confusion.